Hello and welcome to the Blood Red Morning Bulletin. I'm your host, David Comerford, and I'm joined by Emmet Gates. And we're going to discuss a bit of yesterday's action in the World Cup. But before that, we'll start with what's to come today for one Liverpool player in the form of Ibrahima Konate. So obviously called up to the squad quite late on in the process. But because of an injury to Rafael Varane, Emmet, it looks like Konate might actually start for France tonight up against Australia in their first group game. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. Obviously, when you look through, the France's squad, especially in, central defence, there's a lot of quality there, in terms of you got Dijk, Upamecano, William Saliba of Arsenal, Jules Koundé of Sevilla, or Barcelona, sorry, I should say. So yeah, like Didier Deschamps has a lot of options there, even with Varane out injured. So, but I'm happy to see Konate hopefully get the nod, and it'll be interesting to see him start for France, because I have to admit I've never actually watched him play for France. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, and if his performance differs from how we've seen him for Liverpool since joining.
Yeah,
And I know, obviously, Australia,
yeah.
with all due respect to Australia, this is not a vintage Australian side, so I don't know if Konate will be really challenged that much. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
I suppose that could be ideal for Kanate in the sense that he gets to kind of start with uh, start with one of the easier games potentially. I know Denmark are in that group and they're quite a good side, so that might be a more difficult one for him. I think Tunisia as well. So if he is to start for sort of the rest of the tournament and stake his claim, then you'd say he has kind fixtures for that. You mentioned Saliba there, interesting that he looks like he'll be starting ahead of him. But what do you think of this? And this is something I wrote about yesterday for the site. Obviously, starting alongside Upamecano. If you cast your mind back those few years, there was a lot of Liverpool fans sort of saying, go for him. Obviously, he goes to Bayern. Canate goes to Liverpool. Similar kind of money. Do you think that Liverpool got the better end of the deal, chose the better of the two options, and will feel sort of vindicated?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of speculation, wasn't there, around Upamecano? Was summer 2021 when he went to Bayern, and
Yeah,
he
it
was
was.
until
Yeah, at the end
Liverpool
of the
last.
COVID season. Yeah,
Um, Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, to be honest, I don't watch a lot of the Bundesliga, so I can't profess to be a huge watcher of Bayern. Um, but from what I've read, it doesn't seem like Upamecano has kind of hit the heights that he did at Leipzig um, since joining. So when you look at it, you would maybe say that Liverpool have got the better end of the deal with Konate, and obviously Konate went for cheaper than Upamecano went to Bayern, if memory serves. And in saying that, Konate has had to kind of bide his time to kind of regularly start in the Liverpool, 11. When he signed last summer, I only think he played 5 games by Christmas last year. And then in the second, towards the end of last season, he kind of become a regular, the Champions League run, because Joe Matip was in great form and it was difficult to drop him. And then we've seen this season, Liverpool have looked a lot more sturdy at the back since Konate came back, and he's been alongside Virgil van Dijk. So, yeah, I think on reflection, I don't know if Liverpool really missed out by not signing up Upamecano, and I think Konate has been more than a good signing, and he's only going to get better. At 23, he's got a massive future ahead of him. So, yeah, I think Liverpool made the right call there.
yeah, and obviously the sort of reunion of the two Leipzig centre backs. Um, Upamecano was the one who had all the hype. Konate was maybe a little bit more sort of underrated. And interesting to see, I suppose, if Konate's maybe performance levels aren't quite as high, or he looks a little bit less assured without kind of the presence of Van Dijk alongside him. That might be something to watch out for, especially if Upamecano is a little bit more of a jittery presence. But maybe that's a little bit harsh on him.
Yeah,
Moving
I
on to
mean,
sort of, oh, go on.
yeah, I was just going to say the thing about it, we might not see it today because it's like I said earlier, Australia
Yeah,
this is likely going to be not a stroll for France, but you wouldn't say they're going to be, defensively, they're not really going to be challenged. I would say, if Konate starts or if it's Kunde or Saliba or whoever, it's not going to be the most, arduous of games. So I think it'll be difficult to kind of summarize how Konate plays for France as opposed to Liverpool, just purely based on the opponent that they're facing today. There will be more difficult challenges for France further down the road. But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting just to see how he plays in general for France.
Yeah, and like I say, I'd be looking certainly in the group stages towards that Denmark game, and I think there's the prospect of a reunion with Argentina potentially in the last 16, depending on how things go, which would obviously be a lot more difficult. I think France would have to finish sort of second in the group for that, but Denmark are a strong team, so we'll see on that. But yeah, like I say, moving on to yesterday, the man who probably made most of the headlines was Jude Bellingham, arguably man of the match for England. Scored one, involved in a couple more goals. Spoke before the game about his admiration for Steven Gerrard again. There's obviously a couple of angles we can approach this from, but how much do you see those two as similar players? I know there was footage going around yesterday comparing his header to Gerrard's header in Istanbul, but from the sort of stylistic point of view, do you think that they are very alike?
I mean, to be honest, I can't admit that I've seen a lot of Bellingham in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund. Any bits I've seen of him, it has been in Champions League games and for England. I mean, it's a big comparison, isn't it? And it probably doesn't do him any favors at this stage of his career, and especially so if he moves to Liverpool. I mean, the comparisons will probably only intensify. But I don't know. I don't see the. Again, I haven't watched a whole lot of Bellingham, so I'm probably not the best judge of character here. But I don't see that cover every blade of grass aspect that Gerrard had during his career. I see more of, to me, Bellingham from the limited, matches that I've seen him play. He seems to be more like a Frank Lampard. He gets into the box at the right time and more of a box to box midfielder. Uses his intelligence to kind of know when to run, when not to run. Whereas to me, Gerrard was just everywhere. But in saying that, I do see the similarities with the Gerrard Istanbul header and Bellingham's header yesterday. The way just he pivoted his neck, using all of his neck muscles to divert the ball into the corner of the net. So I do see the comparisons there. But in terms of players, I don't know. You've maybe seen more of Bellingham than I have. But at the moment, I just don't see it.
I think one element of it, and something Ferdinand mentioned yesterday before the game, said that Bellingham, in his eyes and coaches that he's spoken to, think that he can play all three midfield roles, sort of number 6, number 8, number 10, and I guess you could sort of liken him to Gerrard in that way because he sort of popped up in all those spots during his Liverpool career. If we think about it from sort of the transfer point of view, though, and on the Gerrard comparison, Bellingham himself has kind of played it down and sort of said you need to do a lot more to earn that. So probably wise from him. But like I say, on the transfer side, as Liverpool fans seeing Bellingham do well during the tournament, it's kind of bittersweet, isn't it? Because there's the reality that performance yesterday alone has probably added even a bit more bulk to his price tag.
Yeah, exactly. If he was 80 million before the match, he's 120 million now. And the better he does, the further and further he goes out of Liverpool's price range, next summer. So yeah, Bellingham doing well at this tournament actually doesn't do Liverpool any favors at all, to be honest. So I would say a lot of Liverpool fans are probably hoping that he doesn't, follow up yesterday's performance with similar type performances. The further England go in this, tournament, you kind of hope that that's probably as good as it gets from Bellingham. But I can't see it. I think he's kind of cemented himself in Gareth Southgate's midfield, and you're likely. I'm saying that Iran again weren't the greatest of opponents, so he's not going to score. I don't think every single game in this tournament, but yeah, I mean if he his goal yesterday and his performance yesterday has already, elevated his price tag. So yeah, Liverpool face a real challenge on their hands to try and sign him next summer. That's for sure.
Yeah, like you say, Iran not the most representative test maybe for Bellingham, and we'll have to see how it performs in the bigger games. But certainly looks like someone who's ready to almost take the tournament by storm and maybe push for that young player of the tournament award or something like that, which again would be quids in for Dortmund. But that'll do us for this morning. Thanks very much, Emmett. Make sure to check out all the written content on liverpool.com today. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with another stream. But until then, take care.